Hello, and welcome to Bookspot. I'm Earl Weinberg. This time we continue our reading of Puck of Pook's Hill by Rudyard Kipling. Puck has introduced the children to Sir Richard, who came over to England with William the Conqueror. He is telling the children how he came to take the manor here, where they still live, only to find that it was already held by Hugh, a Saxon that he went to school with when they were boys. They almost had a fight and then didn't quite. When we came to his house, here we had almost forgotten that we had been at blows. It was near midnight, and the great hall was full of men and women waiting news. There I first saw his sister, the Lady Eluvia, of whom he had spoken to us in France. She cried out fiercely at me and would have had me hanged in that hour, but her brother said that I had spared his life. He said not how he had saved mine from the Saxons, and that our Duke had won the day, and even while they wrangled over my poor body, of a sudden he fell down in a swoon from his wounds. "This is thy fault," said the Lady Eluvia to me, and kneeled above him and called for wine and cloths. "If I had known," I answered, "he should have ridden and I walked, but he set me on my horse. He made no complaint. He walked beside me and spoke merrily throughout. I pray I have done him no harm." "Thou hast need to pray," she said, catching up her underlip. "If he dies, thou shalt hang." They bore off Hugh to his chamber, but 3 tall men of the house bound me and set me under the beam of the great hall with a rope around my neck. The end of the rope they flung over the beam, and they sat down by the fire to wait word whether Hugh lived or died. They cracked nuts with their knife hilts the while. "And how did you feel?" said Dan. "Very weary, but I did heartily pray for my schoolmate Hugh, his health. About noon I heard horses in the valley, and the 3 men loosed my ropes and fled out, and d'Aquila's men rode up. Gilbert d'Aquila came with them, for it was his boast that, like his father, he forgot no man that served him. He was little like his father, but terrible, with a nose like an eagle's nose, and yellow eyes like an eagle. He rode tall war horses, roans, which he bred himself, and he could never abide to be helped into the saddle. He saw the rope hanging from the beam and laughed, and his men laughed, for I was too stiff to rise. 'This is poor entertainment for a Norman knight,' he said, 'but such as it is, let us be grateful. Show me, boy, to whom thou owest most, and we will pay them out of hand.'" "What did he mean, to kill them?" said Dan. "Assuredly. But I looked at the Lady Eluvia where she stood amongst her maids, and her brother beside her. d'Aquila's men had driven them all into the great hall." "Was she pretty?" said Una. "In all my life I never have seen woman fit to strew rushes before my Lady Eluvia," the knight replied, quite simply and quietly. As I looked at her, I thought I might save her and her house by a jest. "Seeing that I came somewhat hastily and without warning," I said to d'Aquila, "I have no fault to find with the courtesy that these Saxons have shown me." But my voice shook. It was not good to jest with that little man. All were silent a while, till d'Aquila laughed. "Look, men, a miracle," he said. "The fight is scarce sped, my father is not yet buried, and here we find our youngest knight already set down in his manor, while his Saxons, you can see it in their fat faces, have paid him homage and service. By the saints," he said, rubbing his nose, "I never thought England would be so easy won. Surely I can do no less than give the lad what he has taken. This manor shall be thine, boy," he said, "till I come again, or thou art slain. Now, men, mount and ride. We follow our Duke into Kent to make him King of England." He drew me with him to the door while they brought his horse, a lean roan, taller than my swallow here, but not so well girthed. "Hark to me," he said, fretting with his great war gloves. "I have given thee this manor, which is a Saxon hornet's nest, and I think thou wilt be slain in a month, as my father was slain. Yet if thou canst keep the roof on the hall, the thatch on the barn, and the plough in the furrow till I come back, thou shalt hold the manor from me, for the Duke has promised our Earl Mortain all the lands of Pevensey, and Mortain will give me of them as he would have given my father. God knows if thou or I shall live till England is won, but remember, boy, that here and now fighting is foolishness, and He reached for the reins. Craft and cunning is all. Alas, I have no cunning, said I. Not yet, said he, hopping aboard, foot in stirrup and poking his horse in the belly with his toe. Not yet, but I think thou hast a good teacher. Farewell, hold the manor and live, lose the manor and hang. He spurred out, his shield straps squeaking behind him. So, children, here was I, little more than a boy, in Santlach fight not 2 days old, left alone with my 30 men-at-arms, in a land I knew not, among a people whose tongue I could not speak, to hold down the land which I had taken from them. And that was here at home? Said Una. Yes, here. See, from the upper ford, Welland's ford, to the lower ford by Bel-Amé, west and east it ran half a league. From the beacon of Bronnenburg behind us, south and north, it ran a full league, and all the woods were full of broken men from Santlach, Saxon thieves, Norman plunderers, robbers, and deer-stealers. A hornet's nest indeed. When de Aquila had gone, Hugh would have thanked me for saving their lives, but the Lady Alueva said I had done it only for the sake of receiving the manor. How could I know that de Aquila would give it me? I said. If I had told him I had spent my night in your halter, he would have burned the place twice over by now. If any man had put my neck in a rope, she said, I would have seen his house burned thrice over before I would have made terms. But it was a woman, I said, and I laughed, and she wept and said I mocked her in her captivity. Lady, I said, there is no captive in this valley except one, and he is not a Saxon. At this she cried that I was a Norman thief who came with false sweet words, having intended from the first to turn her out in the fields to beg her bread. Into the fields. She had never seen the face of war. I was angry and answered, This much at least I can disprove, for I swear, and on my sword hilt I swore it in that place, I swear I will never set foot in the great hall till the Lady Alueva herself shall summon me there. She went away, saying nothing, and I walked out, and Hugh limped after me, whistling dolorously, that is a custom of the English, and we came upon the 3 Saxons that had bound me. They were now bound by my men-at-arms, and behind them stood some 50 stark and sullen churls of the house and the manor, waiting to see what would befall. We heard de Aquila's trumpets blow thin through the woods Kentward. Shall we hang these? Said my men. Then my churls will fight, said Hugh beneath his breath, but I bade him ask the 3 what mercy they hoped for. None, said they all. She bade us hang thee if our master died, and we would have hanged thee. There is no more to it. As I stood doubting, a woman ran down from the oak wood above the King's Hill yonder, and cried out that some Normans were driving off the swine there. Norman or Saxon, said I, we must beat them back, or they will rob us every day. Out at them with any arms you have. So I loosed those 3 carles, and we ran together, my men-at-arms and the Saxons, with bills and bows which they had hidden in the thatch of their huts, and Hugh led them. Halfway up the King's Hill we found a false fellow from Picardy, a sutler who sold wine in the Duke's camp, with a dead knight's shield on his arm, a stolen horse under him, and some 10 or 12 wastrels at his tail, all cutting and slashing at the pigs. We beat them off and saved our pork. 170 pigs we saved in that great battle, Sir Richard laughed. That then was our first work together, and I bade Hugh tell his folk that so would I deal with any man, knight or churl, Norman or Saxon, who stole as much as 1 egg from our valley. Said he to me, riding home, Thou hast gone far to conquer England this evening. I answered, England must be thine and mine then. Help me, Hugh, to deal aright with these people. Make them to know that if they slay me, de Aquila will surely send to slay them, and he will put a worse man in my place. That may well be true, said he, and gave me his hand. Better the devil we know than the devil we know not, till we can pack you Normans home. And so, too, said his Saxons, and they laughed as we drove the pigs downhill. But I think some of them, even then, began not to hate me. I like Brother Hugh, said Una softly. Beyond question, he was the most perfect, courteous, valiant, tender, and wise knight that ever drew breath, said Sir Richard, caressing the sword. He hung up his sword, this sword, on the wall of the great hall, because he said it was fairly mine, and never he took it down till De Aquila returned, as I shall presently show. For 3 months his men and mine guarded the valley, till all robbers and night-walkers learned there was nothing to get from us save hardtack and a hanging. Side by side we fought against all who came. Thrice a week sometimes we fought, against thieves and landless knights looking for good manners. Then we were in some peace, and I made shift by Hugh's help to govern the valley, for all this valley of yours was my manor, as a knight should. I kept the roof on the hall and the thatch on the barn, but the English are a bold people. His Saxons would laugh and jest with Hugh, and Hugh with them, and this was marvelous to me. If even the meanest of them said that such and such a thing was the custom of the manor, then straightway would Hugh and such old men of the manor as might be near forsake everything to debate the matter. I have seen them stop the mill with the corn half ground, and if the custom or usage were proven to be as it was said, why, that was the end of it, even though it were flat against Hugh, his wish and command. Wonderful. Aye, said Puck, breaking in for the first time. The custom of old England was here before your Norman knights came, and it outlasted them, though they fought against it cruel. Not I, said Sir Richard. I let the Saxons go their stubborn way, but when my own men-at-arms, Normans not 6 months in England, stood up and told me what was the custom of the country, then I was angry. Ah, good days. Ah, wonderful people. And I loved them all. The knight lifted his arms as though he would hug the whole dear valley, and Swallow, hearing the chink of chainmail, looked up and whinnied softly. At last, he went on, after a year of striving and contriving and some little driving, De Aquila came to the valley, alone and without warning. I saw him first at the lower ford, with the swineherd's brat on his saddle-bow. There's no need for thee to give any account of thy stewardship, said he. I have it all from the child here. And he told me how the young thing had stopped his tall horse at the ford by waving of a branch and crying that the way was barred. And if one bold bare babe be enough to guard the ford in these days, thou hast done well, he said, and puffed and wiped his head. He pinched the child's cheek and looked at our cattle in the flat by the river. Both fat, said he, rubbing his nose. This is craft and cunning such as I love. What did I tell thee when I rode away, boy? Hold the manor or hang, said I. I had never forgotten it. True, and thou hast held. He clambered from his saddle, and with sword's point cut out a turf from the bank, and gave it to me where I kneeled. Dan looked at Una, and Una looked at Dan. That's season, said Puck in a whisper. Now thou art lawfully seized of the manor, Sir Richard, said he. 'Twas the first time he ever called me that. Thou and thy heirs forever. This must serve till the king's clerk write out thy title on a parchment. England is all ours, if we can hold it. What service shall I pay? I asked, and I remember I was proud beyond words. Knight's fee, boy, knight's fee, said he, hopping round his horse on one foot. Have I said he was little and could not endure to be helped to the saddle? 6 mounted men or 12 archers thou shalt send me whenever I call for them, and where got you that corn? Said he, for he was near the harvest, and our corn stood well. I have never seen such bright straw. Send me 3 bags of the same seed yearly, and furthermore, in memory of our last meeting, with the rope about thy neck, entertain me and my men for 2 days of each year in the great hall of thy manor. Alas, said I, then my manor is already forfeit. I am under vow not to enter the great hall. And I told him what I had sworn to the Lady Eluva. And hadn't you ever been into the great house since? Said Una. Never, Sir Richard answered, smiling. I had made me a little hut of wood up the hill, and there I did justice and slept. De Aquila wheeled inside, and his shield shook on his back. No matter, said he, I will remit the homage for a year. He meant Sir Richard needn't give him dinner there till on the first year, Puck explained. De Aquila stayed with me in the hut, and Hugh, who could read and write and cast accounts, showed him the roll of the manor, in which were written all the names of our fields and men, and he asked 1,000 questions touching the land, the timber, the grazing, the mill, and the fish ponds, and the worth of every man in the valley. But never he named the Lady Eluva's name, nor went he near the great hall. By night he drank with us in the hut. Yes, he sat on the straw like an eagle ruffled in his feathers. His yellow eyes rolling above the cup, he pounced in his talk like an eagle, swooping from one thing to another, but always binding fast. Yes, he would lie still a while, and then rustle in the straw, and speak sometimes as though he were King William himself, and anon he would speak in parables and tales, and if at once we saw not his meaning, he would yerk us in the ribs with his scabbard sword. Look you, said he, I am born out of my due time. 500 years ago I would have made all England such an England as neither Dane, Saxon, nor Norman should have conquered. 500 years hence I should have been such a counselor to kings as the world hath never dreamed of. 'Tis all here, said he, tapping his big head, but it hath no play in this black age. Now Hugh here is a better man than thou art, Richard. He had made his voice harsh and croaking like a raven's. Truth, said I. But for Hugh, his help and patience and long suffering, I could never have kept the manor. Nor thy life either, said de Aquila. Hugh has saved thee not once but 100 times. Be still, Hugh, said he. Dost thou know, Richard, why Hugh slept and why he still sleeps among thy Norman men-at-arms? To be near me, said I, for I thought this was truth. Fool, said de Aquila, it is because his Saxons have begged him to rise against thee, and to sweep every Norman out of the valley. No matter how I know, it is truth. Therefore Hugh hath made himself a hostage for thy life, well knowing that if any harm befell thee from his Saxons, thy Normans would slay him without remedy. And this his Saxons know. Is this true, Hugh? In some sort, said Hugh shamefacedly. At least it was true half a year ago. My Saxons would not harm Richard now. I think they know him, but I judged it best to make sure. Look, children, what that man had done, and I had never guessed it. Night after night he had lain down among my men-at-arms, knowing that if one Saxon had lifted knife against me, his life would have answered for mine. Yes, said de Aquila, and he is a swordless man. He pointed to Hugh's belt, for Hugh had put away his sword, did I tell you, the day after it flew from his hand at Santlach. He carried only the short knife and the longbow. Swordless and landless art thou, Hugh, and they call thee kin to Earl Godwin. Hugh was indeed of Godwin's blood. The manor was thine, and now is given to this boy and to his children forever. Sit up and beg, for he can turn thee out like a dog, Hugh. Hugh said nothing, but I heard his teeth grind, and I bade de Aquila, my own overlord, to hold his peace, or I would stuff his words down his throat. De Aquila laughed till tears ran down his face. I warned the king, said he, what would come of giving England to us Norman thieves. Here art thou, Richard, less than 2 days confirmed in thy manor, and already thou hast risen against thy overlord. What shall do to him, Sir Hugh? I am a swordless man, said Hugh. Do not jest with me. He laid his head on his knees and groaned. The greater fool thou, said de Aquila, and all his voice changed. For I have given thee the manor of Dallington up the hill this half-hour since. And he yerked at Hugh with his scabbard across the straw. To me? said Hugh. I am a Saxon. Except that I love Richard here, I have not sworn fealty to any Norman. In God's good time, which because of my sins I shall not live to see, there will be neither Saxon nor Norman in England, said de Aquila. If I know men, thou art more faithful unsworn than a score of Normans I could name. Take Dallington, and join Sir Richard to fight me tomorrow, if it please thee. Nay, said Hugh, I am no child. Where I take a gift, there I render service. And he put his hands between de Aquila's and swore to be faithful, and, as I remember, I kissed him, and de Aquila kissed us both. We sat afterwards outside the hut while the sun rose, and de Aquila marked our churls going to their work in the fields, and talked of holy things, and how we should govern our manors in time to come, and of hunting, and of horse breeding, and of the king's wisdom and unwisdom, for he spoke to us as though we were in all sorts now his brothers. Anon a churl stole up to me. He was one of the 3 I had not hanged a year ago, and he bellowed, which is Saxon for whispering, that the Lady Eluva would speak to me at the great manor. She walked abroad daily in the manor, and it was her custom to send me word whither she went, that I might set an archer or 2 behind and in front of her to guard her. Very often I myself lay up in the woods and watched on her also. I went swiftly, and as I passed the great door, it opened from within, and there stood my Lady Eluva, and she said to me, "Sir Richard, will it please you to enter your great hall?" Then she wept, but we were alone. The knight was silent for a time, his face turned across the valley, smiling. "Oh, well done," said Una, and clapped her hands very softly. "She was sorry, and she said so." "Aye, she was sorry, and she said so," said Sir Richard, coming back with a little start. Very soon, but he said it was 2 full hours later, D'Aquila rode to the door with his shield new scoured, Hugh had cleansed it, and demanded entertainment, and called me a false knight that would starve his overlord to death. Then Hugh cried out that no man should work in the valley that day, and our Saxons blew horns and set about feasting and drinking, and running of races, and dancing and singing. And D'Aquila climbed upon a horse block and spoke to them in what he swore was good Saxon, but no man understood it. At night we feasted in the great hall, and when the harpers and the singers were gone, we 4 sat late at the high table. As I remember, it was a warm night with a full moon, and D'Aquila bade Hugh take down his sword from the wall again for the honor of the manor of Dallington, and Hugh took it gladly enough. Dust lay on the hilt, for I saw him blow it off. She and I sat a little apart, and at first we thought the harpers had come back, for the great hall was filled with a rushing noise of music. D'Aquila leapt up, but there was only the moonlight fretty on the floor. "Hearken," said Hugh, "it is my sword," and as he belted it on, the music ceased. "Over gods forbid that I should ever belt blade like that," said D'Aquila. "What does it foretell?" "The gods that made it may know. Last time it spoke was at Hastings, when I lost all my lands. Belike it sings now that I have new lands and am a man again," said Hugh. He loosed the blade a little and drove it back happily into the sheath, and the sword answered him low and crooningly, as a woman speaks to a man, her head on his shoulder. Now that was the 2nd time in my life I heard the sword sing. "Look," said Una, "there's Mother coming down the long slip. What will she say to Sir Richard? She can't help seeing him." "And Puck can't magic us this time," said Dan. "Are you sure?" said Puck, and he leaned forward and whispered to Sir Richard, who smiled and bowed his head. "But what befell the sword and my brother Hugh I will tell on another time," said he, rising. "Oe, Swallow!" The great horse cantered up from the far end of the meadow, close to Mother. They heard Mother say, "Children, Gleason's old horse has broken into the meadow again. Where did he get through?" "Just below Stone Bay," said Dan. "He tore down simple flobs of the bank. We noticed it just now, and we've caught no end of fish. We've been at it all afternoon." And they honestly believed they had. They never noticed the oak, ash, and thorn leaves that Puck had slyly thrown into their laps. Sir Richard's Song. I followed my Duke ere I was a lover, to take from England fief and fee. But now this game is the other way over, but now England hath taken me. I had my horse, my shield and banner, and a boy's heart so whole and free. But now I sing in another manner, but now England hath taken me. As for my father in his tower, asking news of my ship at sea, he will remember his own hour, tell him England hath taken me. As for my mother in her bower, that rules my father so cunningly, she will remember a maiden's power, tell her England hath taken me. As for my brother in Rouen city, a nimble and naughty page is he, but he will come to suffer and pity, tell him England hath taken me. As for my little sister waiting in the pleasant orchards of Normandy, tell her youth is the time for mating, tell her England hath taken me. As for my comrades in camp and highway that lift their eyebrows scornfully, tell them their way is not my way, tell them England hath taken me. Kings and princes and barons famed, knights and captains in your degree, hear me a little before I am blamed, seeing England hath taken me. How so great man's strength be reckoned, there are two things he cannot flee. Love is the first, and death is the second, and love in England hath taken me. And we'll hear more from Sir Richard next time.